a very sad one for democracy. I am being prosecuted for hate speech in Austria on November 23rd. And it's a crazy charge because all I did was quote from the Quran. And the reason I'm being prosecuted is I am not a Muslim. So obviously, as a Muslim, you can quote from the Quran. As a non-Muslim, you can't. And how did this happen? I'll give you a little bit of a background. About 2.5 years ago, I was asked by a political party in Austria, and mind you, I offered my seminars to many political parties, to all of the political parties in Austria, but only one political party dared to have me hold seminars educating people about Islam and the dangers of Islamization in Europe. And I gave these seminars, and exactly a year ago, a young journalist lady infiltrated the seminars and recorded my words, had them transcribed, and then sent to the public prosecutor's office, who decided to press charges. I was asked to talk to the police. They actually investigated what I said. I told them exactly word for word the surahs, the ahadith I quoted from, but it didn't really matter because the judge decided to put me on trial, and I will be standing trial for something as ridiculous as quoting from the Quran on November 23rd. Now, you might think that I compare myself to Geert Wilders, whom I very much admire, as you can imagine. But what separates us is that I am a housewife, a mother, a wife to my husband, who has to work very hard to support me and my daughter. And of course, it's very hard for me to pay for my lawyer, who incidentally is one of the best in Austria. Why did I become a critic of Islam? Why am I standing here when I could be sitting at home enjoying the beautiful weather, perhaps even skiing in Austria, and I'm standing here with all of you? You see, I lived in these countries. I am a woman. I experienced Sharia law. I grew up in Iran during the revolution in 1978 and 1979. I was 6 years old at the time. So I remember the black mob of women shouting in the streets, not different from what we're hearing behind us and next to us today. And a young girl of 6 years remembers that. And our house was burned down by an Iranian because this Iranian didn't like me and my family very much. My father and I and my family were separated due to the revolution, and my mom had to, raise me and my sister on her own. I was in Kuwait in 1990 when the invasion happened. I was in Kuwait from 1997 to 2000, and I was a bit older back then, and I started to think to myself, well, what's going on with Ramadan? What's happening with women? I was already very interested in women's rights in Islam back then, and I started to investigate the reason why women in Kuwait were not interested in women's rights or going out to vote. And women told me they don't want to vote because they don't think it's necessary. The men can do that for them. And I was, thinking to myself, why? Why on earth would a woman want to defer her vote, her right to vote, and decide to someone else? And back then I wasn't that far yet to connect the two. But it became even stronger, my quest for knowledge, when I found out that Muhammad probably wasn't the great guy that everybody in Kuwait said he was. And I found out that there were certain things about Muhammad that you can't talk about publicly. You probably all know what I'm referring to. I spent a year in Libya afterwards, again experiencing Sharia law firsthand. I experienced what it is like to live on your own even though you're a married woman. My husband was in Vienna at the time. And it's not a very pleasant feeling, I can tell you that. Back in Vienna, I was shocked in 2001 after 9/11, which incidentally I experienced sitting in front of my television set in Libya. I returned to Vienna in 2001 and I found a completely different city. It was not the city that I had left in 1997. There were a lot of women wearing hijabs all of a sudden. There were parts of Vienna that you didn't want to go to anymore because you didn't feel safe anymore. You didn't feel comfortable anymore to walk around there. You had dilapidated buildings, almost ghetto-like areas. And when I started reading a book called Gabriel's Whisperings, in German it's called Gabriels Einflüsterungen. It's not available in English yet. I read that book. And what's so interesting about this book is that it's written by an Indian atheist who used only Islamic sources. And this has changed my life dramatically. And this is why I'm standing here today, because when I read this book, I thought I have to do something. I cannot accept inequality of the sexes. It is unacceptable. We are Europeans. We believe in equality. How can we allow something like Sharia to guide us? It should be the law that guides us, not some law brought down by some god that may or may not exist. And let me reiterate and emphasize that I have nothing against Muslims. I have many, many friends who are Muslims. But it is the ideology of Islam that makes our lives harder, and that will one day even try to kill us. And as long as I'm able to stand here, and as long as I'm able to stand up for women's rights, and as long as I'm able to fight for my daughter and for my niece and for all the little girls in this world, and as long as a hero, I'm not a hero, I'm just a normal human being, I shouldn't be standing here on my own. We should have thousands and thousands of people who, instead of protesting against democracy and human rights, they should be standing here supporting us. And I think it's a sad, sad day for democracy and our values that we're standing here with more police and more media than people out in the streets. Where are they? Are they busy? With what? One of these days they're going to be busy defending themselves. We're doing it now. We're not heroes, we're ordinary people. We want to live in peace, we want to live with democratic values, and we should continue to fight for these values, like Tommy Robinson just said. He's being booed outside for that, and I think, like he said, that is an absolute disgrace. It's unworthy of the European Union, of its values, its supposed values. And with that, and asking your support with my trial on November 23rd, I would like to close this and thank you very much. And all I have to say is never give up, never give in. I won't, and you shouldn't either. Thank you.